Shalom, shalom. All praise, glory, and honor be unto Yahweh Shem Shai. Double honors unto the apostles and the elders of GMS, who are the true leaders of all Israel on earth today. Salutations to my fellow laborers, the Akim, the confusion of face Akim, that are doing this work in truth and sincerity, risking their lives and their freedom to do so. Salutations to the hopefully elect, the Akwathim, all right, that are listening and learning. Call halal Yahweh by Hashem Shai by Hashem Rakakadash. This is going to be part 2 of the recap on how Edomites became white people. Okay? Because, you know, the comment board is on fire, and the Edomites, there they go, regurgitating all this false history and trying to use pseudoscience to plead their case, which is hopeful. But fact of the matter, so-called black people ruled Europe. Get over it. They ruled it for 1,000 years after the fall of Rome, which they were the cause of the fall of Rome. Hence the reason why the so-called white man came back with such a vengeance against the Israelites when they came back into power. All right. In 1492, with the fall of Granada, all right, with the fall of Spain and Portugal, the so-called white man was coming back into power fully, and he set out to destroy the Israelites. Hence the reason, and not just the southern kingdom, but the northern kingdom as well. Hence the reason why Cristobal Colon, also known as Christopher Columbus, sailed with Moors. His interpreters and his navigators were Moors, because the Moors had been to the New World already prior to these stupid Edomites. Moors had already done it. Okay? They knew the route. So, let's get a couple scriptures. This is Luke 8:17. For nothing is secret that shall not be made manifest, neither anything hid that shall not be made known and come abroad. So now this history, the scriptures, and the truth is coming abroad to the dismay of the so-called white man who is Esau Edom. They don't like this stuff. Because all they lie, even now when you go into their classrooms, they're going to lie about this history, sweep it under the rug and pretend that it didn't happen. But the relics that are left behind prove them to be liars. This is Psalms 85:11. Truth shall spring out of the earth, and righteousness shall look down from heaven. Okay? Here's a definition of blackamoor. And it reads, and this is from the Winston Simplified Dictionary Encyclopedic Edition, 1933. Blackamoor. Black plus more, a Negro, especially an African Negro. So it put a difference between the two. It said a Negro, especially an African Negro, because there were African Moors too. Because Hamites, all right, this is also letting you know that there's a difference between a Negro and an African, because Hamites converted to Islam as well, and so there were some African Moors. But it's letting you know that there's a physical difference, a racial difference between a Negro and an African. And the Moors that were ruling Europe were not African. They were so-called Negroes who were Israelites. The Israelites was a dark race of people, point blank, period. All right? They were a dark race of people, and the Bible gives you many accounts of that. How the comparison between the Egyptians, the sons of Ham, all right, and the Israelites were physically similar. All right? Were physically similar, but yet different people. Okay? Plenty of accounts. So let's let this play. So all these relics are still in Europe to this day. So I guess the slaves were going around making statues of themselves.
In fact, it's the climax of a forgotten chapter in European history. In the year 711 AD, Muslim forces invaded Spain and created a society so rich and so powerful.
And she's saying it like she's just turned on by it, like she's getting wet just talking about it. Because guess who the women that they were having their way with? And since we know that whatever your father is, there you are, she might very well be an Israelite too. Now you're going to have scoffers crying about that. But the Moors left a lot of seed over there. They were all the women over there were having the Moors were having their way with, especially the white women. All right, and over centuries, some of their, over time, some of the people, some of that seed survived, but some of them look like her. All right, that's just a fact that they just do not want to acknowledge. That's the confusion of face, because there was a confusion of face clown on there talking about WTF is confusion of face. Dummy, if you don't know, then you're not apt to teach. Take notes.
The envy of the known world.
And they were the envy of the known world. Why? Well, it's evident.
It wasn't the rigid, ferocious Islam of our imaginations, but a progressive, sensuous, intellectually curious culture that for a number of spine-tingling years looked set to sweep through the whole of Europe. It is an incredible story.
The whole of Europe.
One that has been...
All of Europe was ruled by so-called black men, period, for a 1,000-year period. And that's scriptural, all right? In the book of Revelation, I do believe, let me look real quick, now that it's on my mind. It talks about how the dragon was wounded for a period of time, but did live. That was when Rome fell, all right? Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's in Revelation, the 12th chapter. Anyway, I'm going to do the spirit. I'm going to try to find that. But because that wasn't, that just, I'm doing this off top. I really hadn't set this up. This was all being done through the spirit. But let's let it play.
Systematically written out of history.
There it is. Written out of history.
After the Catholic monarchs took over the city of Granada, they began to destroy all evidence that the Muslims had ever been in Spain.
Right. So iconoclasm. That's when they would go around knocking the nose and lips off statues.
These people have become known as the Moors.
There it is.
Propaganda, sparked by the Crusades, has given us an enduring image. The diabolical Moor, a dark-skinned, savage, alien enemy. Now, archaeologists and historians are starting to piece together the real story of the Moors in Spain.
They've always known, all right? But it was even, so what they did, basically, they barely talked about it. And when they did, they tried to make them out to be these monsters and these savages. But they weren't. They were just the ruling class people. And do what all ruling class people do. You put the people under you into subjection. The same way that we're in subjection here in America. We're subject to all the laws of America. Okay? And by the way, the name of this video is The Moors, When Black People Ruled Europe, Real Black History Revealed by Howard Glover Jr.
They're uncovering the remains of hidden cities. Not a single account of life here survives. All its archives were incinerated in the fires of the Inquisition. But the Catholics couldn't bring themselves to destroy this place. The Alhambra is one of the wonders of the medieval world. And by preserving it, they've kept a box of secrets that we can use to decode the civilization that built it. Inside the palace walls, the architecture is breathtaking. Every detail of the palace decoration seems to be part of a scheme. Row upon row of intricate geometric patterns are carved.
And see, and this still has not been duplicated yet. And they do tours to this place. All right. And, you know, and so all these great castles that were built all throughout Portugal and Spain and throughout Europe, those were built by so-called black people, Israelites, the real royals. All right. And even the queen at this fake wedding of the fake royals that went on, even she admitted that Charlotte, that she told this girl that she wasn't the first biracial or Negro in the royal family. All right, that it had happened before. Truth being said, that those Edomites married into the royal families, because Charlotte goes back to the lineage of King James, who was a so-called black man. All right, his son nickname was Black Boy. All right, that was his nickname. I don't know of any white man who would refer to his son as Black Boy. Okay? Let's go to another video just to prove these points.
The U.S.
Is it one more? There we go. This is insert from Hidden
A lot of the
Colors.
founding of America was based on Moorish science. If you see paintings of the inauguration of George Washington, it looked like a Masonic ritual. So again, Masonry is based on Moorish science. So they would have these Moorish advisors around them. If you look at old paintings of George Washington, you will see George Washington standing next to a black man with a turban. And remember, when you see the black man with the turban, that's a Moor. That's not a slave. See, people automatically assume that.
Yeah, because slaves didn't get to dress that way. That was a Moor actually in his traditional Muslim dress, wearing a mitri with the top covered, of course, because Israelites wore mitris as well, but the crown of their head was exposed. All right, that was the difference. Okay. And these were the ruling class peoples in the Americas prior to 1664, and then finally in 1681, when it was written into law and the new race of white people were created. All right. So these race traders, these Moors, were also landowners and slave owners of their own people, and they also assisted Cristobal Colon, which is the world ignorantly knows as Christopher Columbus, on his journey here to America and enslaving of the Northern Kingdom. Therefore, making the Northern Kingdom also fit the prophecies. Okay? In the book with Bartholomew de las Casas, it gives you an event. It's when the noses, and the hands were cut off of the native Indians in different parts of South America and in the islands. And I'm going to get you a scripture that foretold that. And this is Ezekiel, the 23rd chapter. And I'm going to start at the 25th verse. And it reads, "And I will set my jealousy against thee, and they shall deal furiously with thee. And they shall take away thy nose and thy ears." That's exactly what the conquistadors were doing to the Northern Kingdom. All right. And also, let me just finish it. And it says, and thy remnant shall fall by the sword, and they shall take thy sons and thy daughters, and thy residue shall be devoured by the fire. And that's exactly what they were doing. When you read Bartholomew de las Casas' book, all right, it gives you many accounts of everything we just read right here. What they would do to the brothers and the sisters is when they would not meet their quotas, when they were forcing the native so-called Indians of the islands and of South America to work in the gold mines, when they wouldn't meet their quotas, they would cut off their hands and their noses as an example to the other people. All right, and they would also burn 13 at a time. All right, they formed these things. I forget what they call them, where you were almost hanging. Your feet were barely touching the ground. They would set fire under you, and they would burn them 13 at a time in the remembrance of the 12 apostles and the Lord. Show you how wicked the so-called white man is. And those images are on the cover of Bartholomew de la Casas's book. And during those events, the so-called Negro, and the so-called natives were in bondage and in slavery and being destroyed together. And it was these Moors right here that helped do it. These same Moors also were on the ships and slave owners here in America. All right? So they were those race traders, those sellout 2/3, man. All right? But the so-called white man hides his history because he doesn't want you to know that the so-called Negro had power like that and that they were in power like that, because that messes up his ideology of the false pseudoscience in history that surrounds white superiority, because they didn't become white until 1681. You can check with Theodore Allen's research, Dr. Jacqueline Badalore, and Dr. Robin DiAngelo. They exposed all that.
Black is slave, but slaves didn't wear no turbans, because remember, slaves weren't allowed to practice no Islam or any other kind of religion except Christianity. So when you see that turban, that's a black man. And there's a few pictures of George Washington and other people with Moors or black men with turbans standing next to him. When you see that, just know that those are Moors.
When that cracker, low-down, wicked beast, Cristobal Colon, was on his genocidal rampage, you have Moors that were captain of the ship.
They would have...
Enough said. Call halal Yahweh Ba'Hashem Now was shy, Ba'Hashem Rakakadash, and a Baba Ball.